Welcome back, my name is Steve and thank you for joining me on my photography journey today. I've had this 180 to 600mm lens for, well, several weeks now, and so I think it's a good time for me to talk about it in a bit more detail. It fits right into my collection here, somewhere between my 12 to 28mm, which is a full frame equivalent of 18 to 42mm, and the 24 to 200. So with these lenses I can cover anywhere from 18 to 600mm. And as you can see, there is quite a size difference, and therefore this one is a lot heavier as well. So I've not really been carrying it everywhere that I go. I've tried to be selective when I take it out, which means I will only take it out for things that I think I want to capture, certain types of pictures really. There's no kind of scientific or clever way that I've tried to divide these up, it's just how I tend to shoot. Tomorrow I'm going to head to a National Trust property where hopefully I can put all of these together and take lots of pictures. So the first one is wildlife, and to me that's predominantly birds, things like ducks, swans, geese, seagulls, that kind of thing, whether they're flying or perched or whatever, and it means that I can take pictures of them from further away without scaring them off really. And then the second one is landscapes, and by that I mean those kind of big wide open spaces that, yes, I could use the 80mm side of this one to get the whole thing in and have just that one picture, but that doesn't always show off that landscape to its full potential. So using the 600mm one, I can pinpoint a few trees, a building, just a waterfall maybe, and pick those out and be able to kind of isolate it from the rest of the landscape to make it stand out a little bit more. And then water is the next one, which is kind of a combination of the last two. So my favourite place to be is surrounded by water and wildlife. So whether this is a pond, a lake, the seaside or anything like that, then having a lens like this, I can pick things out that are further away. That could be wildlife, that could be the landscape. And then of course the other thing is when I'm in a fixed position. For example, on a boat, maybe. So where you're in a single position, your camera's on a tripod, you don't really want to move around too much, or you can't move around too much. So you can use that lens to zoom in on particular aspects rather than taking a picture of the whole thing, and to pick out waterfalls, birds, buildings, trees, anything like that. And then the last thing is using the ability of a telephoto lens to pull the background towards your subject so that the background looks a lot bigger in comparison to the subject. And this makes for some really interesting pictures of things like flowers, where you can blur out the background, you can exaggerate the size of something that's behind the subject that you're taking a picture of. So it kind of plays with the depth of field, plays with the proportions in the picture. The thing to remember is that when you've got this lens at its full 600mm, the closest thing that it will focus on has to be 2.4 meters away, so about 8 foot. So things aren't going to be particularly close when you actually do this, so it's not for kind of macro photography, unless it happens to be a bug that's quite a long way away, of course. Now, I may have mentioned that I went to Norway recently. Several of these situations occurred during that trip, and this lens was invaluable during that time. So we saw wildlife, we saw water, we saw birds, we saw, well, that's wildlife, I guess. But when we were going up the fjords, quite a lot of the time I was on the balcony outside of our cabin. My camera was on a tripod. And I was just kind of picking off things in the landscape that I wanted to take pictures of. So there were waterfalls, there were boats, there were buildings, everything like that. And being able to pick out a single thing, yes, I did use the wide angle lens for some things, but being able to kind of isolate a particular subject was really useful. And what was also good was that I wasn't going anywhere, so I didn't have to carry it anywhere. I didn't have to take it on and off the camera. So for me, that was ideal. And then when we did get off the boat and go for day trips, go out into the scenery, I didn't take that lens. I've not carried this one out and about with me yet. I took the 18mm and the 24-200 because they're light. They're a pretty flexible range of focal length. So having those with me was all I needed to go exploring with. So what I haven't done is a whole day with the big lens and seen how it works, how I find it when I'm just kind of out in an area that could give me these pictures. So guess what my plan is tomorrow? I'm going to head to Runnymede with the 180-600mm lens. I'm going to put it on my Z5. You may have heard of Runnymede. It's on the banks of the River Thames, which is just a few miles from where I live. And it's actually where the Magna Carta was signed. And this was an agreement between King John and some of his barons to kind of protect their rights. And it's actually often called the birthplace of modern democracy. So considering today is our election in the UK, where we're electing our parliament for the next 5 years, seems quite a good time to go, I think. I'll also take my Z30 with probably the 12-28 on it so that I can film things and explain what I'm doing as I go. But what I want to do is take a variety of pictures and carry it with me for the day and see whether the size, the weight is a problem, see how I get on with it. And like I said, it's by the river, there's trees, there's plenty of wildlife, there's meant to be some nice views and things as well. So we'll go have an explore and I'll let you know my thoughts. So things didn't go entirely to plan. For one thing, last night I spent far too long watching the election coverage, stayed up too late, got up too early, carried on watching it, and there was no real surprise in the outcome of it. And there's also no real surprise with the weather. And it's horrible today. It's wet, it's windy, visibility isn't very good. So certainly not a good day to be going out with this lens. I wanted kind of a bigger view in order to try and take some pictures which warranted a 600mm telephoto lens. And there's no way that I'd get them today. It's just wet and there's just not much going on. You would see grey clouds and rain, basically. So what I've decided to do instead is have a look at some of the pictures that I took in Norway using this lens and have a look at them in a bit more detail than I have done before. So let's go into each one of these and we'll just have a little look at the settings, how I've edited it and what it kind of shows. So this first one, so it's a DNG, so it's a high dynamic range merge. I've taken one image at a lower exposure, one at kind of about right, and one higher exposure, because as you can see, we've got these trees in the foreground, we've got a mountain in the background with snow on it, and then a clear sky. So three very different items. And this was taken at 6:42 in the morning, so early morning. And what that means is that the sun wasn't fully up. So again, different areas of darkness, different areas of brightness. It could look a bit strange. Having just one image of it would have meant that I would either have missed some details in the dark areas, so in these trees, on these rocks, or I would have exposed this nicely, but then that would have overexposed the sky, the mountain in the background. So you can see that this was taken at 1/200th of a second, f9. So my standard settings, the way that I approach it anyway, is I try and keep around f9, particularly for landscapes where I want to get a fair amount in focus. So you can see these trees in the foreground are in focus, and also parts of the mountain in the background, so that it's not all blurred out. You can see what's going on in the scene. And I will then not let my shutter speed go below 1/100th of a second, generally, particularly if I'm hand holding something. and then I'll adjust my ISO to compensate for that. So ISO 100 here, and this was taken at 180mm, so wide end of my lens, but I wanted to get the mountain in the background, the trees in the foreground, to give us that kind of overall look at it, which is quite nice. This one, so I've got a few pictures of the moon. There was a couple of evenings where we had a lovely almost full moon, and it was rising over this landscape, so I couldn't really resist taking pictures of it. So again, f9, ISO's up a little bit more at 200, 1/500th of a second, and this is at 230mm, so we're getting slightly more zoomed in as we go. But again, I like the fact that this is in the evening, so this was at 9:30 in the evening. And you can see how light it is still. The sun didn't set till a lot later than this. And again, it's not the direct overhead light, so you've got a bit of haze in the background, a few little bits of cloud around the moon over these mountains. And I like the lines of the mountains kind of leading into the center, and then the moon up above where the two mountains join. And then these next two pictures are basically the same picture, but with two very different edits applied to them. So let's just have a look at it like this instead, so we can see them next to each other. So they're two different pictures, slightly different position, not a huge change between them, but very different edits. I like them both. That's why I've included them both, because I wasn't entirely sure which one was my favorite. No real change in the settings. They're both 1/250th of a second, f9, ISO 320 and 180mm. And again, I just like the fact that the moon is there above kind of the end of this rocky area. And then the blue of the sea as well. Kind of a darker edit, a lighter edit. I like the red of the rock in this one, but this one on the right is a lot more realistic as to how it was. And again, coming up to 10 o'clock in the evening, still nice and light for getting those pictures. This one is another one taken at 200mm. Again, it's the moon. This one is at 10:30, so the colors have changed considerably. And what I wanted to be able to do here was to get these small islands in at the bottom, the moon in up at the top, and the clouds with the colors in between. So that's why I was back at 200 rather than all the way out to 600. And again, ISO 5.6. That must have been a mistake. I would generally have gone for f9 for that. ISO 100, although I guess I wanted to keep the ISO down, and the shutter speed couldn't really go any lower with that when I was hand holding it. So maybe that's why we've got f5.6 rather than f9. I can't remember, to be honest. This was back in May. So I just quite like the colors in this one. The change from the blue at the top, going through the purples, getting darker purple as we go down towards the blue of the sea at the bottom. And then let's have a look at this one, which is at 600mm. Now this was as we were coming in towards the port, and there was this massive bridge across the area where the port was, and we were facing it head on from where I was stood, and there was a bus immediately in the middle of the bridge, so I just had to take a picture. The background isn't great because of all the houses and things like that, this industrial area at the front. Ideally I'd get rid of all of those, but I think that's a bit too much photoshopping for my liking. But again, f9, ISO was 160, 1/640th of a second. I can't speak today, I'm too tired. 600mm, and that's the kind of picture that you get. So remember what I was saying about when I like taking pictures of things like flowers and pulling the background towards them. Again, focusing here, all of the background, the image kind of gets compressed when you're at 600mm, so everything appears closer together, and it makes the background appear larger than it might otherwise look. And then this one, little house down by the edge of the fjord, just the trees in the background, and actually I've cropped in on this a fair amount as well, because in the background there's another mountain in the distance, and it just doesn't look quite so good, I don't think. So I wanted to isolate this one little building and have those trees in the background for scale. So again, 600mm, so zoomed all the way in on this one. ISO 160, f9, and 1/250th of a second, 7 o'clock in the morning. And this was kind of the nice weather that we were getting, and nice and light. So if we have a look at the overall image, actually what I would probably wonder if that's kind of a better kind of crop, just moving the house a bit off center. What do you reckon? Not convinced. I think I might go back to how it was. So yeah, that's a few of the pictures from Norway that I've taken with the 180 to 600mm lens. Let's just have a look, see if there's any more that we've got that could work well. And we will just see if we can change this to show what the actual focal length is. And yes, we can. So let's go for 600mm and see what else we have. So lots of pictures of boats, bridges, the moon. This one is something that we wondered whether was a whale potentially, but actually on closer inspection, rather than whales, I think it's actually just a rock, and that just happened to be where the waves were breaking on it, which was a little bit disappointing. See how many pictures I took of it, all these ones that I've selected to delete. A couple of birds that we saw flying around. Nothing too exciting, it's just a seagull, but I wanted to use the lens, I wanted to take pictures using it, and wildlife is a very good thing for that. This one actually, I've not edited yet, but let's do that together now. So let's zoom back out, so we're fitting zoom there. And like I've said before, what I tend to do, let's go to landscape and go to auto first of all, and just have a look and see what that looks like. So I love the white of the house and the tree lined mountains in the background and the blue of the sky. And what you can see is these marks are dust on my lens basically. And just a quick tip while we're here is you can use this healing tool to right square bracket to make it a bit bigger, click on it, and it basically disappears. And then we can see it's the other ones, go back into there, and that. Now, if you are concerned that there's more of those, or you want to double check that you've got everything, you can click on this visualize spots, and this will show you in more detail what's going on. So actually there's basically a big smear there. You can see it better there. Right, square bracket, just drag over the top of that, and then it disappears. So there we go. Let's come out of there. Z to go back to fitting on the screen, and those spots have gone. I needed to clean my lens after this and my sensor. I don't know how it got so messy, but there we go. So again, having the 600mm lens to zoom in on this house in this landscape gives that look of the size of it, gives you a appreciation of the scale of the scenery around you. Whereas if I had just taken it with my 18mm wide angle lens, then that would have been a lot less impactful picture, and that's kind of what I want it for. So I still need to work out how to take it out for a day, take it somewhere where it's not pouring down with rain, but that is not today. So you'll have to subscribe in order to see that one coming up in a future episode. But for now, leave some comments if you've got anything to say about the photographs, how I've used the lens or anything like that. And I will see you again next time on my photography journey. So have a great week and I'll see you then. Bye.